Well, welcome for our In Touch with Experts. First one in May, and we have our guest of today is Dr. Livio Provenzi. And I am very excited about this session because this is a session that I wanted to do from the time I met Dr. Provenzi's teacher or mentor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rosario, yes.
Rosario, yes. Several years ago. So this month is Kangaroo Care Day, which is this Sunday on May 15. And I don't know if people know, but I started Kangaroo Care Day 12 years, 11 years ago for my son's 10th birthday. My name is Jamile Jackson, and I have a Ph.D. in ergonomics engineering. And after that, I had a baby in the NICU, so I'm a NICU mom. He's 21. He's going to be 21 on Sunday. And professionals like you took care of my baby and made our story happen. I make the Zaki brand, which are products that I started both with my engineering background and my personal experience with Zachary being in the NICU for 5 months. So Kangaroo Care Day started just to give people an opportunity to increase awareness of kangaroo care. And I would like to introduce Dr. Livio and give him we're going to do a couple of 20 minutes of presentation, and everything is going to be open later for questions. So.
Yep. So thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. As you said, I'm going to speak and try to stay in a 15-20 minute talk so that we have enough time to discuss together. As someone was going to say just a few minutes ago, epigenetics is something that can be super complicated or super easy. It depends on the level to which you dip yourself into it. I would try to highlight what may be important and relevant for us as clinicians or parents dealing with little babies, little infants who may have special needs during the very first days, months, years of life. And I start to share the screen. Okay. Oh, maybe I should do it the other way. Sorry. Okay. I am a psychologist. You see the slides? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist and a researcher, of course, from Italy. I always work close to Lake Como, as I said before. And 2 years ago, 2 years and a half, I moved to another hospital, another university in Pavia, which is closer to Milan. And during the last 10, 12 years, I focused especially on the biomarkers of stress and protective care in preterm babies and at-risk infants. I work in a neuropsychiatry unit, so I deal with preterm infants, but also with older children that may have some kind of neurobehavioral consequences, like cerebral palsy or genetic syndromes or other kind of autism, of course. And the type of work that I do and I try to do both on clinical and research sides is always to focus on parent-infant interaction with a systemic and family approach. I think that only focusing on the babies is really providing little information, and we also need to engage parents and also the staff. So I think that this kind of event, this kind of meeting is perfect. So we have everything around the table today. So I'm going to talk a bit about epigenetics, and I would like to start with this little citation from a poem from Elizabeth Bishop, which is an American poet. all the untidy activity continues, awful but cheerful. This is a citation that I often cite when I start my presentations. I like it because it really gives the feeling that everything that relates to human development, especially during the very first days, weeks, months of life, is messy, is completely complicated and complex, not only complicated. But it is thanks to this complex process of life that we create meanings, that we grow, that we develop. And just to give you an example, I'm sorry for those of you who already saw this video, but many didn't. So I just show you a very brief video of a family during a car drive. I hope you hear the sound. If you don't hear it, just let me know, Jamil. Okay.
Masai, you're not a single lady, buddy. No, yeah you are. Yeah you are. You're a single lady. Oh! Sorry. Sorry. Look, buddy, I was just kidding. I was just kidding. You can do it. Buddy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, buddy. You're a single lady, okay? Okay? Here we go. If you like it and you let it put a ring on it. Sorry.
Did that hurt your feelings? You can be a single lady if you want, okay?
I'm a horrible father.
Do you want to be a single lady?
Okay, so now you see what I mean. Every second we create meanings out of this messiness of our interactions. Here, for example, the father just wants to be smart and say something funny, but the little kid didn't understand the fun and I mean, took it personal. So everyone in the car started their own reaction. I just want you to see it without the sound so I can show it. You see that after the child starts to cry here, everyone has a different reaction. So it means that everyone is building, is creating different meanings from the same experience. So the girl here in the center, I don't want to meet her. She's really angry, like, you know, fighting to the father. And the other girl, probably she's going to be a social worker or a psychologist, I don't know. She's trying to soothe and calm the brother. And then the mother says something very important. She says, did that hurt your feelings? And then she says, you can be a single lady if you want, which is one of the most important things that the parents do. And then we, as NICU staff, we do with parents, giving permission to be together, creating opportunities and permission to be whatever we want, whatever we can, and it's very important. And also the father is creating meaning, and he is saying, I'm a horrible father, of course, joking, but so experience really matters. I don't want to play the video anymore. But as I said, we create meanings out of experience in a messy and unpredictable ways. Just two other examples before diving into epigenetics. These are examples that I took from Twitter a few days ago. This is the first one. So how many times it happened that it seems to us that we see something and then we open the eyes better and we say, oh no, it's not that. So this looks like Batman and it's a horse with a kind of blanket on it. And this is another example. For many decades, for centuries, we have believed that there were monsters in the ocean, but probably it was not a monster. It was something else. This is something I just discovered a few days ago. Yeah. Okay. So this messy way of creating meanings do not only apply to travels in the car, to Batman spot during a foggy day, but also to the NICU stay. And we have obtained some years ago drawings of the visual representation of the NICU stay from mothers and fathers. And I just want to show you some examples. This is a drawing of a mother. So I'm sorry, this is in Italian, but is the discovery of being pregnant, like fireworks. and then a calm sea, a calm ocean for the pregnancy, birth as a danger, and then 2 gifts because she had 2 twins with the discharge. And I want to highlight that the NICU stay is completely missing here. There is a missing piece which is super big. We don't know nothing about that. And these probably reflect the way in which this mother is creating meaning out of becoming a mom of a preterm baby. And look at what happens. I mean, what is the drawing that we obtain from the father of the same twins? Completely different drawing. So probably completely different meaning and narrative and history about what is happening. Here you have other examples. Again, another mother, another father. Here they have the same kind of, 3 segments, but pretty different. And yes, I know males are not so good in drawing compared to females, but yeah. And sometimes they create similar meanings, like this kind of roller coaster, which is very similar in this couple, the mother and the father. But it's very important to recognize that everyone, and even siblings maybe, grandparents, everyone is creating a different meaning during the NICU stay after the discharge. And I think that one of our missions should be to take care of the meaning-making process of these families, because based on this meaning-making, the future pathways can be completely shaped in different ways. And all this messiness should leave a footprint. This is the point in which we look toward epigenetics. So all this messiness of development, of risk factors, of meanings, should leave a footprint in our body, in our phenotype, in our biology. And to introduce epigenetics, I would like to talk about what is happening right now during the last years in Mozambique, where many community of elephants are being born with shorter tusks or without tusks. So they are trying, their biology is trying to adapt to an environment in which the adverse exposure is us, human beings, poaching, and they are telling generation after generation, they are delivering this learning, this meaning making that if you have shorter or no tasks, it's better to survive. And probably there is a paper published last year that suggested that probably one of the mechanisms involved in this kind of generation by generation learning can be related to epigenetic mechanisms. So what is epigenetics? The best example that we have linking epigenetics and early development comes from Canada, where some researchers, Michael Meany and Moshe Ziv, were studying from the end of the 90s, the different quality, individual differences in the quality of caregiving in the animal model of rats. And it's very easy, easier than in humans to measure the quality of caregiving in rats because they do licking, grooming, and archback nursing. So specific behaviors that you may easily spot and measure. And they discovered that in natural environment, there were differences between some mothers who did these behaviors not so often and mothers who did it very often. So mothers, we can say low quality caregiving and high quality caregiving, even if I know that this is not ethical when we move this to humans, but just to understand each other. So little pups exposed to low quality of caregiving, you can see it here below, they have a gene silencing. It means that in the place of the gene, when the transcriptor factors is meant to attach, this is not possible because a methyl group, which is another molecule, binds to the same site and shut off the transcription. Okay, it's like with parking lots. You would like to park there, but there is already a methyl group, so you cannot bind there, and the gene translates with less intensity. We call this process methylation just because it is due to this methyl group. And another way we refer to this process is gene silencing. So the gene doesn't produce anymore the proteins that it was meant to produce. When pups are exposed to high quality caregiving mothers, they have a normal gene expression. So the transcriptor factors binds in the place where this is meant to occur, and the gene is expressed and produce proteins as normally should occur. You may also want to use this metaphor, so the DNA can be considered like a music draft, and to play this music, you need to follow exactly the instructions included in this music draft or in the DNA. But the way in which the DNA is expressed, the way you express this music, depends on your interpretation. And the interpretation of DNA in terms of expression depends on many environmental factors. In the case of the rats here, it is quality of caregiving. In the case of humans, we have many different evidence, right? I mean, accumulated during the last 2 decades. For example, maternal depression during pregnancy, which is capable of affecting the DNA methylation of specific genes in the babies, maltreatment and abuse, low socioeconomic conditions, and also acute traumas like the winter storm in Canada in the 90s, or also the attack of the Twin Towers. Rachel Yehuda, working in New York, she did a lot of work, wonderful work, studying the effects of this traumatic experience on women who were pregnant and living around this area and their infants later on after birth. And all these different adverse experiences may leave a footprint and epigenetic marks that change the way the DNA works. So during the last years, we ask ourselves what's happening to preterm babies, because also preterm babies are exposed to stress, pain exposures, stressful interventions, even removing, tape removal can be super stressful for these infants. And we know that there is a large variety in the quality of caregiving in different NICUs. Within each country, between countries, between continents, today there are people from many different places in the world. You know very well this. So we studied how pain exposure may affect epigenetic programming in preterm babies. And we discovered that at birth, there is no significant difference between preterm babies and full-term infants in the amount and degree of methylation of a specific gene, which has this strange name. And this is the gene encoding for serotonin transporter. You know that serotonin is super important for behavior regulation and affect regulation. And we know that preterm babies may be at risk for purer behavioral and affective regulation, at least during the first months of life, compared to full-term peers. But what we found was that among the very preterm infants, higher doses of painful skin-breaking procedures significantly associated and linked with increased methylation of this gene. So greater pain, more gene silencing. So pain exposure in these infants is able to get under the skin and change the way the DNA, specifically the serotonin DNA, is functioning. Not only these, which are the consequences of these exposures? We found that at discharge, very preterm infants, and they were all healthy with no leukomalacia, no big, no brain injuries, no hemorrhagia. So very preterm infants, healthy ones, with increased methylation had reduced volume of specific brain areas. Again, this was related to pain exposure during the NICU stay. And at 3 months, we discovered that greater methylation was linked with less regulatory skill during a specific mother-infant interaction that I can share with you later, less orienting skills rated by mothers with a questionnaire, and less social approach, again, rated by mothers with a specific questionnaire. Not only this, even at 5 years, 4 years and a half, very preterm infants with increased methylation at this gene responded with greater anger and less stress regulation skills to a laboratory emotional regulation task. So you see that the consequences of pain are long-lasting in terms of behavior, but also in terms of epigenetic markers. So today I'm speaking with you because this is the, for the Kangaroo Care Day. So I'm going to finish my talk. I I talk very little about Kangaroo Care, but now I hope that we can discuss about this together, because like for many other topics, researchers are always focused on the negative side of life. We always study the effects of adversities, negative exposures, pain, traumas. There is very little research on the epigenetics of developmental care and Kangaroo Care, for example. I found this study from a German group 2 years ago. It's not published in Acta Pediatric, I'm sorry, this is wrong. But anyway, they found that infants exposed to early skin-to-skin care and Kangaroo Care, they have the opposite change in the methylation of this gene, SSC64, so serotonin transporter gene. So we may want to start to think about the possibility that when we promote closeness with the parents, when we promote skin-to-skin Kangaroo Care early during the NICU stay, we are not only promoting bonding, neurobehavioral stability, but we are even arriving deeper under the skin of this baby, helping their epigenome regulation. And this is something super cool from my perspective. Yesterday, maybe you know, there was this announcement of the first picture taken to the black hole, which is in the middle of our Milky Way. Yes, I think this is something like that. So if we would start to have in our mind that when we do Kangaroo Care, we are protecting the epigenome of our babies, I think it is kind of the same importance. This is going to steer a revolution in the quality of care. I would like to finish with another poem, because of course, applying epigenetics to Kangaroo Care is a road that doesn't exist. We need to invent new tools, new ways. And this is a poem from Ko Un, which is a Korean poet. There is no road. From here on is hope. I'm breathless. From here on is hope. If there is no road, I make the road as I go. From here on is history. History is not the past. It includes everything from the future and the danger it brings, through all my present life, to the unknown after and the darkness after. Darkness is mere absence of light. If there is no road, I make the road as I go. There's a road, and along it a host of tomorrows are coming flawless. I like this poem because many times when I talk with colleagues, clinicians, they say, yes, but it's difficult to do it. We don't know how to. I know there is no road, but you can make the road while you go. And we go better when we are together. Parents, physicians, nurses, researchers, policymakers. So maybe in the future, we can also organize some kind of summer school open to all the stakeholders there and trying to work together, creating new roads for skin-to-skin, Kangaroo Care, and quality of care. There are a lot of people I'm thankful to. This is just a list. And of course, thanks to you for listening to me. I hope I was not super long. I stop here. Okay.
It's perfect. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. If anybody has questions, please write them in the chat. One thing that I think about often is what is happening to all these babies in Ukraine and
Oh, yes.
moms. We usually we do an annual giveaway, and this year we sent Zaki hugs blankets to 150 babies in 16 different NICUs in Ukraine.
Wow.
We partner with the March 2 Times, with NICAP, and a couple of organizations of parents. But you know, it's like you say, everybody should do what we can do. You know, we even if we don't think that one person can make a difference, one person can make a huge difference. So let me see if anybody has any questions. But yeah, so Zach was also in the NICU when September 11 happened, and that was pretty stressful.
Oh.
I was in Houston. I was not in New York, but it was very stressful for me because, you know, in the news they started speculating like, oh, medical centers are going to be next, and I'm like in the biggest medical center in the world. And I remember looking at the window, I was like, and then they tell me you have to go home. I'm like, no, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. You know, it's that kind of uncertainty that was common between the first, the days after the attack in New York, but also the first months after the start of the pandemic, for example. We had a project, and we discovered that the same effects on methylation changes also were present in infants born during the pandemic, during the very first wave. There is a similar study done by a group in New York, Marta Welch and Danny Dumitriou. They did a similar research. And so, you know, I don't know what's happening in Ukraine, but I'm really worried about that.
Yes.
As you said, there, and also in the surrounding, because when our natural tendency to create connections is challenged, like it is challenged there, it reminds me of the very first studies by René Spitz, you know, and he studied the effect on young Romanian newborns abandoned. And I think there would be a lot to do to protect and to care for these infants. We are receiving some of these infants in my hospital right now. Many of them are without parents because the father is fighting and the mother, who knows, maybe died. So it's really something incredible. And for me, for my generation, this is the very first war in Europe that I can remember. So it's really something traumatic, even in our area. When I look outside the window, everything seems normal, but I can't imagine what's happening there.
So my question is, how we do babies that have parents have the same trauma than babies that don't? And my question is, like, I think parents can be the buffer, even if there is things happening around. One of the things that I remember the nurses telling me was, you are, whatever you feel, the baby will feel. So that's why I was always trying to be cheerful. We have another preemie mom here, Monica. I don't know if you want to talk about these, but it's like trying to be as protective as possible. And I think Kangaroo Care is probably the best way to protect our babies. How do we create this message to increase Kangaroo Care? Because, like you said, it's not just because it's nice, and we have over 5,000 different publications talking about the benefits of Kangaroo Care.
Yes, this is something I always ask myself, because now it's some years that I go around in Italy or outside Italy in conferences, and sometimes when the conferences end, I say to myself, we always say the same things every year. Things, sometimes they change, but not with the pace that we would like to. And I think it is a matter of culture also. One thing that I want to say two things on this. The first one is that the best memory I have of being in a NICU is it was in New York City, in the NICU where Marta Welch works. They have this wonderful program promoting closeness and contact between the mother, the father, the caregivers and the babies, using touch, using Kangaroo Care, skin to skin, and the mother is allowed to speak to the baby about how she feels, even saying something like, I'm really worried about what is going to happen. I don't know what is happening to us. And even these kind of things. And this is super powerful. It's super easy. It costs nothing, $0, €0. And so it's a matter of culture. And I think that sooner or later we would have to start educational programs that are directed not only to staff teaching. I always fight about this when we try to teach staff technical resources on how to communicate with parents. It's not going to work. You need to have parents and staff together in the same place for one weekend, talking together about what it means, developmental care, what is standard of care, quality of care. what are the needs and how to. Otherwise, if we don't build this kind of shared culture, it's going to be very difficult, and it's really going back and back and forth many times, and you always stay in the same place. We need to change the culture behind it, and you cannot do it without parents.
Well, and Kangaroo Care historically, it started in Colombia, which I'm Colombian.
Yes.
And it was because there were not enough incubators. So we have this stigma that Kangaroo Care is for countries or NICUs that don't have enough equipment, when in reality what we have in the parent is the best equipment that we can ever have.
Yes.
To protect them, to protect their brain, to calm them. And babies are like everyone else. If they are scared, if they're stressed, if they're in pain, if they're uncomfortable, if they are, with lots of lights and noises, we don't sleep that way. So why are we expecting these babies to sleep away from the parent of, the parent?
Yeah.
There is a recent study that shows that, and this is like recent, like this month, I saw it this month, I think it was published like very recently, and it's about surrogate kangaroo care.
Yeah.
We always think that the parents are the only ones that should be doing kangaroo care, and yes, that the parents, when they're available, we should be doing it. But when there's not a parent in there, anybody with I always say that a healthy chest is always better than a mattress for these little bitty ones.
Yeah, you make me, and then of course everyone else wants to, but you make me think about two things. The first one is very simple. Is the acronym that we use is always sometimes MKC, maternal kangaroo care, which always leaves out the father. And I always say, when I write it, I always say to myself, no, please.
Yeah, that's why we call it kangaroo care instead of.
Yeah.
But so the kangaroo mother care is it's in a place where babies are being discharged at 1,500 grams. I mean, 1,200 grams. I saw in Colombia a pair of babies that were going home at 1,200 grams, and they were in kangaroo care all day. And the mom is the most, the one that gives the feeding and all that. But yeah, fathers cannot be like Larry. My husband kangarooed Zach, and I think in the U.S. that was very like, what, men kangarooing 21 years ago? But yes, we did that. So fathers are very important, but we're terrified. We're terrified, and that's why I made the Zaki Zach, was to give this hope and help to these parents that we want to hold for a long time. But I remember holding Zach, and he was scary, and he was tiring, and it hurt. And so, Monica.
Yes, I only would like to share my experience. Fortunately, I had my triplets, babies that were born 29 weeks in England. And actually the nurses put me, my babies in my chest, and I think was great. And I always been very grateful for them. And after years, I always try to convince, other mothers, other nurses, that it's a right for a mother and a father to have the baby. And sometimes it's difficult because maybe it's a culture thing or whatever. And I always try to put the example of we are mammals, and mammals, like a cat or a dog or whatever, they stay with the baby very long.
Yeah,
they were born, and that's what I.
Yeah, this is so true that as a researcher, I always ask myself why we consider in research studies, we consider skin to skin as the experimental condition and separation as normal control. Should be the opposite. I mean, should be normal control, skin to skin and separation. And yeah, even, you know, this reflects a culture. Okay, the culture is that normality of intensive care is separation, and then we should add little by little. I think we need, Monica, we need you to you know,
Yes,
I don't know the English word, but
we try to, I try personally to really I don't know, engage the mothers here in Spain, because it's totally different from England, really. Of course.
Oh, you're in Spain now.
Yes, I'm in Spain now,
okay.
but my babies were born in England, and really,
okay.
In Spain there are a lot of changes, and it's going to be okay. But I had my babies 24 hours, you know, per day, really very open unit, and I can be there the time that I want. And sometimes in Spain you don't find this. Of course, they go to the good road and way, but I always try to, you know, to really motivate the mothers, motivate the nurses with, for example, I don't know, training or information, papers, whatever that really helps. But I think the easy way is when I talk with them, like, you know, the monkeys do this, the cats do that, you know, because it's very graphical, you know, it's very graphic to really see that only humans, you know, it's like we put the baby in the chair, we put the baby in the car, we put the baby, and no, I don't know, it's my personal view, but really, if the mother can stay with the baby the first year, you know, complete, and then start to, you know, slow. This is my point of view.
Yeah, and it matters how we talk to parents, right? Mm-hmm. So if we tell them, you know, do you want to hold your baby, then it gives the opportunity for them to think that maybe I shouldn't, right? Mm. But if we ask them, how long are you going to hold your baby today? Then it's like a given that you're going to hold your baby today. Not if you're going to hold the baby, but how long are you going to hold the baby? Another thing that I have fought to the tooth and nail is that we don't say, how is the baby tolerating kangaroo care? Because that makes it sound like, well, maybe they're not tolerating, you know, well, where we should say, like Dr. Bergman says, that we should say, how is the baby tolerating not being in kangaroo care instead of tolerating being in kangaroo care. So, yeah, but
I really would like to highlight that I think this is something that we should do together. So we need to find ways in which, you know, researchers, at least as I am a researcher, but also clinicians, parents, we should work together. Otherwise, we create all those, you know, against movements that we are facing during the last 2 years with the pandemic. That maybe we want to go in the right direction, but then we create separations, and we want to reduce separations. No, so maybe we, before having a close, a culture of close care. Closeness care in the NICU, we need to have closeness between staff and parents, maybe, I don't know. Wow, this is a very long question.
Clarissa, do you want to unmute?
There is often no one to say.
Holding on, many units have a different definition. Everybody has a different definition when the babies should start kangaroo care. Let me see. Can you hear?
Clarissa? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I just often have. I realize what the importance of KMC is, and the big impact it makes, and it's really so exciting to know that we can have this impact. But because we often work very much isolated, and even the more experienced nurses and staff are very, very afraid. So these babies that, and usually the ventilated babies, usually the babies that have umbilical lines, they're the ones that need the KMC the most. But we are really scared. We don't have a neonatologist or a pediatrician close by. So the closest doctor we have is 13 minutes away. So if an emergency happens, then we don't have anyone close by to re-intubate, etc. So on the one hand, I feel safety should prevail and we should not do KMC or not put the baby at risk of having any exposures. But I see so many photos of babies that are intubated and babies that have lines and are really critical in the KMC position. And it's just going to make such a difference. And I was wondering if you have any tips for me maybe to overcome this fear, or what do other units do just to make sure that these babies can still go into KMC or KFC?
Wow. Okay, now was it the program that now we start 2 days of discussion? No, thank you very much, Clarissa. It's very difficult for me to give a response. I think that maybe if there are physicians or nurses here, maybe they have more experience than me. I can just say that I know of colleagues that do ultra early skin to skin, even when babies are intubated in Sweden, for example, Karolinska, Uppsala. I have colleagues there and friends working there. So I think that there is a way to do it in a safe way. And if you want to convince your superiors, I think that you may want to cite, there is a paper published in 2009 by Nobel Prize for Economy. And this paper said that if you promote an early intervention before, the earliest you promote it, you have the best return in terms of economical returns for the healthcare system. So I will send it to you. You can also search it. The first author is Doyle, D-O-Y-L-E, 2009. And the title is something like why we should invest in early intervention, something like that. And this is a Nobel Prize for Economy. So I know nothing about the economy, but yeah. So if you have an intervention, a protective intervention that starts after 4 or 5 years, you're wasting the resources of the system. So Kangaroo Care is the most the earliest intervention that we can promote. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, definitely going to look that up.
Yeah, a couple of things. So one of the doctors that is doing the Kangaroo Care at birth for 24 weekers is going to be our next guest expert on the 18th. So make sure you come on to that one. Another one is that the problem that you have is very common, and I held Zach when he was intubated, and I see the problems with intubating, holding babies that are intubated. The moms are stressed out. When the moms are stressed out, the babies are going to be stressed out, even if they're in Kangaroo Care. So we don't do a lot of benefit. We do benefit, but not as much as we want to, as if the mom is calm and doing skin to skin. So for me as an engineer, because I have a Ph.D. in engineering in ergonomics and human factors engineering. So for me, the task was, how do we intubate these babies safely? So we can talk about that, Clarissa. I think you have my number.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you my email. But yeah,
thank you so much.
I can send you some videos, of other units that have been doing that correctly, because you're right. It is, if we're going to put the baby in danger, then we have to intubate them again, and it's not only an injury to the baby. The mom reduces the confidence that they can do one job that they can do, and then it costs a lot of money.
Yes.
Intubate. So I'll give you
thank you so much.
talking of money seems less, intimate than talking about Kangaroo Care, but sometimes that's a good language. and
Well, so if we talk about, yeah, I mean, it is not just like, you don't, and I don't know how much it is in the rest of the world, but in the US, an intubation is $25,000, and we don't have, the system that others have.
yes.
Another, what about the brain development of these babies when they start going to school? And it doesn't stop in the NICU. It doesn't stop. Developmental care, kangaroo care, any of these interventions, family-centered care, neuroprotective care. Those are cares that we don't see if they work at the baby's discharge. We see
Yeah.
when they go home and they start trying to have friends and going to school, and they get to be teenagers, and can they have a girlfriend, can they have social things. So all this is not, everything that we do in the NICU is going to affect them for the rest of your life. So even if we do it and if we don't do it, everything is going to be for the rest of the life.
Yes.
Christine.
Ciao, Chris.
Hello. So first of all, I had to go off camera because I had like 800 people in my office. This is what happens when I'm trying to do things at work and do things. Anyway, so I know there was a lot of discussion about kangaroo care, but the reality is that, especially here in the United States, that people have to go back to work, or they don't have paid family medical leave, and they can't afford to be in the NICU as often as these families would like to. So I'm super curious about, I think research needs to also continue to go in a direction beyond like in other ways besides kangaroo care. I mean, we use some of the hearts where the, moms keep this, their smell, and they're able to put it into the baby's isolette when they're not there. Like, what do we know about these other types of interventions when parents are not physically at the NICU with the baby, next to the baby, but recordings of maternal voice, or even when they're not able to do holding because this, Clarissa posted the challenges, but what about just voice and the impact of voice bidirectionally on these other types of mitigating factors? So I just think it's really important that we need to, like, I think there's so much phenomenal research on kangaroo care, and it's sort of like we all know this is great, but I think then it can make some families feel really bad that they can't provide this, optimum care, and then that can exacerbate feelings of you know what I'm saying. But anyway, just thoughts on that, and I would love to see how more research can go in these other types of interventions to supplement lack of presence.
Yeah. Can I answer?
Yes, you should.
So I think on kangaroo care, we're talking about kangaroo care the way that we talked about breastfeeding decades ago. That we don't want to offend those that can do it. We don't want to, if the moms can't be here, we don't want to get them to feel guilty. We have to be really honest about the care, the way that we are doing with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is the best you can do for your baby. Of course, if you cannot do it, there are many other roadblocks, then we can do other things. But kangaroo care is the way to take care of babies. Is the way to heal the parents, not just the babies, but it is very healing for the parents. And I can tell you because it was very healing for me. And I did it 21 years ago when it was something nice to do, not something that, is evidence-based the way it is right now. So, if the parents know all this information about kangaroo care, they will make the time and they will make the effort to be at the NICU. Of course, there are many that can't. But if you go to the NICU and you see a mom looking at the baby through the window of an incubator, that mom is thinking about all the things that she's not doing at home, and the baby doesn't even know that she's there. So, if we can have the conversation of how do we get these moms to be in kangaroo care. You can tell
Yeah,
me. You don't have to write it.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to interrupt. I just think I totally agree. But there are some families that are making choices between feeding their children that are 2 hours away from the hospital and having childcare for them because there's nobody else to care for them. And being, I mean, I get it. I'm just saying our system is broken, and those are like huge systemic issues that need to be addressed in our local, national level. But in the meantime, like, what can we do to help mitigate some of the impact of that lack of parent present?
So
to help,
I had to leave the NICU, and it was not only very, probably the worst part was when I had to leave. You know, I was able to leave my work, put my work on hold, and be in the NICU for all day. And I know very few women in the United States can do that. And it was an agony to leave. And that's one of the reasons that I made the Zaki hug, was that how does he know that I love him? You know, if I leave him every day, so I'm in other words, abandon him every day, I let all these people hurt him, and I don't stop them. I mean, he doesn't know that they're trying to save his life. And then when he's the sickest, I don't hold him or touch him. So, you know, how do we get these babies to know that they are part of a family, that they are, you know, they're loved? You know, they are like any other human. If you feel love and you feel, I mean, you have like more strength to keep going and to survive. So, you know, instead of, you know, looking for ways, and I made the Zaki hug for that. You know, it kept my scent. I would leave it, you know, it has the shape of my hand, so I would leave it the way that I would leave my hands if I was there. But, you know, Kangaroo Care is just, there's no, you know, I can't say enough about Kangaroo Care and not, you know, support all these parents. And surrogate Kangaroo Care, the research just came out about, you know, having other people hold when the mom is not available.
Yeah, I can just add to this that, I mean, what would, from a research point of view, that of course it is, I mean, not from a research point of view, but from an ethical point of view, I think it's always a matter of permission, as you said, as both of you said. So if you give the permission and if you create a general shared culture of quality of care, then you can do it with skin to skin. You can do it, but the meaning behind that is always the same. And of course, I know parents that at the very beginning may be scared of touching the baby. So you may want them to approach slowly, and maybe giving directly the baby can be something which is disrupting or you know, generating more fear. So you may want to approach in a different way. And Christine, you are a music therapist, so you know better than me how the voice or the sound can work very well. And because of course touch is only one of our modality, but skin to skin is not only touch. As I said before, you share emotions, you talk, you share the smell. So I think that using the voice may be useful. Sometimes when touch is not possible, maybe can be also used. There are studies on this. There is a group in Geneva, in Switzerland. They do a lot of research on these, and they have very good results in terms of oxygen saturation, regulation of stress, response to pain, and so on. Filippa, yes, Manuela Filippa. And but of course, I don't think it should be a matter of should we choose one intervention or the other. I think that when you have a set of mind, when you have a mindset of quality of care, then you can do whatever you want and it's going to work. If you think only in terms of techniques, it's not going to work. Maybe it works sometimes, but it's different. I mean, I think that Kangaroo Care is not just a technique, is a way of caring. Is more than the technique itself. And the voice, of course, is part of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a multisensorial stimulation.
Some weeks ago, a nurse trainee came to me asking to do a thesis on something I didn't know, which is sensory saturation. I didn't know about that, and then I searched for that. I said, but it seems to me like doing Kangaroo Care so yeah, I was surprised of that term, but because many things that Kangaroo Care is only touch, but of course it's not only that.
Okay, so to be respectful of everybody's time, we're going to finish, and we will stay a little bit longer for those that want to stay. Dr. Provenzi, do you have any slides that you want to show? Any things that you want to say? We have a couple more minutes, and I want to give you the opportunity to do that.
I have some slides, but it's going to take a lot of time. And I want to introduce something that I cannot, open up a discourse that I cannot close. I can say this, that, okay, we talked about epigenetics. I don't think that epigenetics is going to be the answer to the quality of care. It's just, I think it's a good point of view right now to observe how what we do in the NICU, for bad and for good, may leave long-lasting biological footprints. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we're going to change the biomarkers we are affected to, we are addicted to, because research is like, like the dress. There are trends. Every some years we change the trend. So now epigenetics is super trendy. It's cool. Anyone wants to talk about that, but I think it's not going to be the final answer. What we can obtain right now is a general message that is, whatever you do gets behind the skin. So doing properly, good quality developmental care really matters. It's not just, caring for creating bonding or something emotional. It's something neurobehavioral. It's something that physicians, nurses, even, even in medical care, we should include this. It's not something else. If you don't do it, you're not doing it good. So, yeah. Yeah, this is something that, because I think that after 2 years of pandemic, we were super, as a scientist, as researchers, we were so far from people, from citizens, to different world. It was very difficult to communicate. There was a rejection of whatever was science at a certain point. So we decided to exit from the university, from the hospital, and go into the place of the city where I work in Pavia. And we have organized 3 different nights with live music, drink, and a bit of science. So I tell something about what we do with parents, children. I tell some kind of new evidence from, for example, how paleontology is going to tell us how, that we are social, that we are born to care for infants, that we do this from where we were in the Pleistocene. So we do this kind of thing together with music, and it's going to work. We did one night 2 weeks ago. It was very good. It was raining, but there were 70, 80 people there. So next time, I hope will be more. Of course, it's a local event. It's in Pavia, which is in Italy. But maybe we can, use the format and do it in another place. Why not? I think this is a big mission. If we do research, we cannot do it without engaging people, engaging normal citizens. Not just parents, patients, but really the people, the people that live in the city, the people that goes around. Otherwise, even because we do research with public money. So people pay taxes, we do research with this money, and we need to give something back. And we need to be able to give something back. So we need to learn how to do that. So if this experiment works, putting together life, music, and science, and a bit of drink, why not?
I have a question about that. Many of the NICUs, they do like a reunion where the moms bring their
Yes.
babies, or the families, not just moms, but moms, dads, whoever wants to come, and they come back and they have time with the NICU staff that took care of their babies, and they meet other moms, or they make it like a reunion. Like every year, they see the moms that they were in the NICU with. How important is that?
Ooh,
Because I
I
mean,
have,
it's a lot of work. A lot of nurses have to go through a lot of things, finding the moms, doing this, and how important is that for the moms, for the
no, I
staff?
think it is very important. We didn't talk today about the post-discharge period, but preterm birth and NICU stay doesn't end with discharge. And I'm very worried that we use the term family-centered care for NICU stay, and after that is only neurobehavioral assessment of the baby. So it's surprising for me. So family-centered care stops when the family goes at home.
Becomes a family.
So it becomes a family. So and these kind of activities are very important. Of course, I also have mixed feelings sometimes because yes, a preterm baby is going to be a child, adolescent, adult with a history of preterm birth. But when there is no big sequela, no big consequences for behavior, or I think that at a certain point, and I don't know which is the timing, for every parent may be different, but at a certain point, you need to have a twist, to change the narrative about yourself. If you still tell yourself that you are that moment, and that is going to change always, the meaning that you create in your life, that may be a little bit limiting, frustrating sometimes, unless you use this history to do something big, like you do. But I know that parents that many years after, maybe the infant now is an adult, and they still tell themselves, if I did that, if I didn't do that, it's okay. Now time has passed, and you need to look at what is happening right now. Okay, so preterm babies become adults, and then you need to face what you have. You have an adult, and so these apply to many other conditions in the human life. We use what happened to us as a kind of stamp, and it's very difficult to disentangle from that stamp. But in general, I think it is very good, very powerful, and yes, as I said, it is something that adds to the need of doing family-centered care after discharge. This is, I can just share the, is it this one? Yes. This is the flyer of the event. So it is in Italian, but it is Songs Against the Fear. And psychobiology and neuroscience to better understand who we are. And yeah, the logo is great. I didn't do it, but yeah.
That's awesome.
So we started with this, Born to be Wild, which is a kind of Born to be Wild, but
that's
yeah. And then yeah, 9 June is the next one. If you want to come, if you plan to come to Italy,
I'm there. I'm gonna be there. Yeah, I always think that that we always remember the staff. We always remember that nurse or that volunteer or someone that hold your hand when your baby was in a surgery, for example. See them after and be able to look at this, have these conversations with staff, that when your baby's not in the NICU, but when your baby's out, and these other babies can help see other moms that just keep on it. It's gonna be okay at the end.
Yes.
I had a little sign on my NICU in Zachary's
And
bed.
that's something that only parents can do.
What?
This kind of support, this kind of peer-to-peer support, and even reassurance is something that when a parent do it is different, even using the same words, but it's different than a staff member or
and tell me why, because I know by experience is like that. And I had, when Zachary was in the NICU, I had the wife of a friend that had a baby that had already 7 years old, and it was like this connection never met her until Zachary was like 10, I think. But having that person that I thought she knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
How important is that? Because many hospitals have peer-to-peer support, but I don't think enough have them.
Oh yes, and that in Italy, I don't know how many, but it's always a matter of resources, and in many cases when there is peer support is paid by parents associations, not a service offered by the hospital itself. So yes.
Yeah, we have parents.
And this is very important. I think when reassurance comes from the staff, I mean, parents look at the staff as someone who should have the superpowers to save the baby. And it's different when you receive a reassurance from someone like this or someone who is your peer. Usually it's better for us when we are under negative feelings to have to partner with someone who is peer with us, who share the same experience or kind of similar experience. And it is easier to feel that words reflect something which is true in the end, really experienced. So yeah, this is again other things that should be.
I think taking into account that not everybody wants the same support. For example, her name is Susan, and I'm still friends with her. I didn't know her. I just knew her on the phone. We didn't have FaceTime then. But like they would invite me to the group of parents that are in the NICU, and they were going to do an activity, and I never wanted to go to that because they were talking about babies, and if my baby was doing really well, I would feel bad for those that were not doing very well. And if my baby was really, really bad, I didn't want to hear that this baby is going home and mine is still struggling. So just to be conscious that not everybody wants the same type of support.
Yeah, and this is another reason why I said it is not a matter of techniques. It's a matter of a mindset. When you know what you're doing and why you're doing, you can do whatever you want, and it's going to be the perfect technique. Otherwise, if you only go around with your toolbox full of techniques, but you don't know what you're doing, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's so well said. I couldn't have said that better. So thanks to everyone. And we have our next, Kangaroo Care Day on Sunday. We have our next session on the 18th and the other one on the 25th. So everybody's welcome. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. And
thank you very much.